Hi, I'm Mike Stone. I'm with the National Export Tech team, and I'm here with Bill Dickson of Bauer Compressors, who will introduce himself in a moment. We're in this video session going to talk about export and international marketing. This is part of the Export Tech content library, and let me give you a little background. First, Export Tech is a structured export acceleration program that helps small and mid-sized manufacturers around the U.S. expand in global markets. It's offered by the NIST Manufacturing Extension Partnership and their MEP centers around the country, in partnership with the U.S. Commercial Service, part of the U.S. Department of Commerce, and their U.S. Export Assistance Centers throughout the country, and a variety of state, local, and national partners as well, such as FedEx, the state international trade offices and trade organizations, SBDCs, and cities like the city of Norfolk here in Virginia. The content library is an attempt at our part to bring video, PowerPoint presentations, and other tools to our clients. This video could be used in an Export Tech session, or it could be used offline by a client to learn more about marketing. Our approach is to bring case studies of experienced people like Bauer Compressors to talk about what's been effective in terms of international marketing and identify best practices. And that's the way that many companies most often prefer to learn, is to hear from other companies like themselves that are further along in the journey. With that said, let me introduce our guest, Bill Dickson of Bauer Compressor. Bill, thanks for being here.
It's our pleasure. Gracious good afternoon. Welcome to Bauer.
Well, thanks very much for letting us into your space like this and giving us some of your time and giving us the opportunity to learn from some of your experiences.
It's our pleasure. Anytime we can help dispense knowledge on helping people grow is good for the group.
So can we start by getting some background on Bauer? Can you talk a little bit about where the company was founded and maybe when you established in Norfolk operations?
Sure. The company itself is 75 years old. We are not a young company. It is a family company. The third generation is at the helm of the company. We came to Norfolk back in the mid-70s, 1975. The current facility that you're in has been here since 1979. We went through about an $18 million expansion renovation back in 2014.
Great.
This particular facility employs about 270 people. Quite frankly, we own the entire city block here in Norfolk. We've been a key component here in Norfolk. We love it here. Our claim to fame, if you will, is international business. We needed a deep water port, and Norfolk gave it to us.
Can you give me an overview of your products and the markets you serve?
Anything and everything medium to high pressure air or gas is what Bauer participates in. Mike, these markets for Bauer are very small, very unique niche markets, and that's what we excel on. We are the solutions providers for our customers. Those customers could be the City of Norfolk Fire Department, could be Portland, Maine's Fire Department.
Just a couple of concrete examples. So you're big, for example, in sort of scuba, for example, scuba markets, and medical use of compressed air too?
There's a differentiation between the grades of air. High pressure breathing air is our biggest market.
Got it.
When Bauer first got into business back in the 40s and up until probably the 80s, scuba diving was the big sport, if you will.
Right.
Well, it's just not exciting enough for today's kids.
Right.
Predominantly, our high-pressure breathing air business is for municipal fire departments. And that could be here in the United States, Mexico, Central South America, or through our daughter divisions overseas. Could be Saudi Arabia, could be Singapore, could be anywhere.
You're a German-based company. Obviously, can you just explain a little bit about your international footprint and maybe also a little about the division of labor between Norfolk's operations and the rest of the world?
That's a good question. The Bauer facility here in the United States is the largest manufacturing facility outside of Germany. Okay, there are 5 Bauer factories in total. Germany is the headquarters. We get some of our key components from that facility, hence my comment a few moments ago. We bring those key components into this facility here. We provide the engineered solution. Outside of this hemisphere, we push those products to market through Bauer daughter companies, who in turn are working with their own partners Okay.
Distributors?
Distribution, correct. In this particular hemisphere, meaning Canada, the United States, Mexico, all the way down, we're working directly with those distributors and end users, that kind of thing.
Got it. So in the Western Hemisphere, you've got your own Bauer sales offices in, say, the U.S., I think it was Mexico and Brazil?
We have, in the United States, corporate offices here in Norfolk.
Right.
We have a physical footprint in Rio de Janeiro,
right.
Mexico City, and then we have a scattering of daughter offices here in the United States.
And they work in concert with distributors throughout the hemisphere.
You bet.
And then in the rest of the world, you are sort of working with your Bauer sister or
Correct.
daughter subsidiaries, their sales offices,
Correct.
and their
Correct.
distribution footprint.
That's exactly right.
So there's two a little bit similar but different.
Totally different dynamics.
Yeah.
Totally different.
And what is Norfolk, what's the division of labor in terms of manufacturing? I think you were telling me you do more customized solutions here
Correct.
versus other locations?
Correct. If you went out into this facility that we're at right now, this facility is about 270,000 square feet over 4 buildings. Every single product that you see going through the production line is different from the other product that's going down the production line. Again, we're a solutions provider building specifically to the customer's requirements. And that's what makes us strong.
How many world markets do you serve currently, roughly speaking?
Markets?
Yeah, countries is what I was
The
really...
globe.
Just everybody.
The globe.
Right.
Bauer as a company has holdings basically on every continent in the world.
Right.
And I'm visiting with each one of those business entities every month.
If you sort of look at your marketing plan or your major marketing activities, what are some of the major marketing activities you invest in to generate international business?
There's 2 different dynamics there, Mike. Bauer participates in 2 different segments. In this hemisphere, we're more a direct factory to the distributor.
Okay.
Okay. Outside of this hemisphere, we're participating with other Bauer daughter companies. Okay, let's address both. Mm-hmm. On the hemisphere, meaning this particular hemisphere, we are directly responsible for trade shows, directly responsible for show participation. We push those sales leads out to distribution, follow up with sales leads, focused sales training, the whole shebang. It's more where we're focused and controlling in this hemisphere.
So just to take that example a little further, so
Please.
you guys very much lead the trade show presence, for example.
We do.
So you run it. You might invite some distributors to attend,
Correct.
but you're in charge of the
Correct.
content and what's going on at the...
Correct. And to further that, let's say we're in charge of that trade show and a distributor participates with us. That sales lead that distributor generates, it belongs to Bauer because it's a Bauer show. Okay. But we still participate with that distributor to help him close the sale. And that's everything from quotation preparation to sales training, everything.
So trade shows are important. I think you told me offline too that your web presence, particularly in the Western Hemisphere, is very important, and you control that here as well, right?
You bet. In the old days meaning 5 to 10 years ago, a lot of the sales leads that you generated were from print ads. Well, it's a case where the next generation that is coming into the marketplace is more the smartphone generation. They just as soon research the products on the web page.
Right.
Okay. We keep that web page up to date all the time. We have it translated into Spanish for our Spanish-speaking customers. In this hemisphere, where we have a distributor and they're responsible for a particular territory, they're responsible for initiating the advertising. Mm-hmm. We won't pay the advertising bill, but what we will do is create the ad for them. There is value there.
Right.
And a lot of these smaller companies, if you will, they can't afford the expense to hire a professional. Well, we have an entire marketing department here that does nothing but create ads, and that can be in English, Spanish, Portuguese, whatever they need.
Got it.
Yeah.
So there is advertising, but that would be more on the distributor's control,
Correct.
but you can provide support in terms
Correct.
of advertising copy.
Correct.
Great. So shows, web presence, advertising, any other major categories?
The real big one, and I can't reinforce it enough, is the direct face-to-face.
The sales activity.
The sales activity.
Okay.
Too often anymore, people hide behind email. Whether they're afraid to pick up the phone or whether they're afraid to go knock on the door and be in front of that customer. Bauer very much believes in getting in front of the customer. We have a sales team here within Bauer, and that doesn't mean just here, but this entire hemisphere.
Right.
We don't want the salespeople at their desks. We want those salespeople in front of the customers.
Okay. So you're aggressive about your own salespeople are out aggressive, calling customers. Your distributors are calling on customers, and there's obviously a lot of joint calls.
You bet.
Right. So a lot of leads are really in those sales. A lot of the leads are really coming from that sales activity.
That's exactly right.
Great.
You may have a guy come into the booth at a trade show. You'll use that sales lead as the basis for a future sales call.
Right.
We would go in with the distributor on that joint sales call, training the person on how the piece of equipment is designed, why they need to buy Bauer, what's the benefit to them, how to solve their pain, if you will.
Right.
Yeah.
You started talking about the division of labor between you and the distributor a little bit. So you've said some things. They are primarily responsible for advertising. You provide support.
Yep.
Trade shows are primarily on you. There might have some role in it, but trade shows you primarily handle, and the web presence you primarily handle.
Correct.
Right? Is there other elements of the division of labor, other things that they are tend to be in the lead in versus where you tend to be in the lead? I mean, those are some.
Let me bring you back and qualify. When we're talking about trade shows, Bauer's really taking the lead on what I would categorize as a major trade show.
Got it.
Okay?
Great.
We would bring all the staff in, the hardware, meaning the equipment, set up the stand, et cetera, et cetera. The distributor would be involved or responsible for if it was a small regional trade show.
Okay, I've heard that before.
That's exactly right. We would come down, staff the booth with them, sometimes provide equipment for them, and then everything else. It's very common for the distributor to obviously have salespeople, okay? It's our responsibility to go in there and train their salespeople on why they need to be paying attention to Bauer product. What's the benefit to that company?
Right.
We train them on how to make that sales presentation properly. We reinforce that training with head-on sales calls to kind of reinforce the training, if you will. Mm-hmm. And then hopefully at the end of the day, we hope it yields to an order.
Right.
A lot of our distribution, and it doesn't matter whether it's a breathing air distributor or an industrial distributor, which is non-breathing air, they have many different products that they're also selling. And I kind of call it the squeaky wheel, meaning the more often you're in front of that guy, the more often he's going to pay attention to you.
Right.
So I like that.
Right. Are there other elements? I've heard that, of course, before, the importance of making sure the distributor salesperson is engaged and paying attention to your product line.
Yep.
What other things do you do to support them or get their attention? I mean, one is clearly showing up and visiting, training, going on joint sales calls together. Are there other things that are important in terms of getting their focus?
I think you hit the big ones on the head. The big thing is you got to stay in front of them. It's a case where any compressor that we sell, whether it's a breathing air or a non-breathing air, you're talking about a capital expense. It's not typically an emotional buy. The municipality, the industrial company rather, he has to budget for that. So it's a very long sales cycle. We have opportunities that take years to nurture, to cultivate before you see the order. So it's constantly staying in front of that guy.
And by the way, just in terms of their incentives of the distributors, one of the challenges I've heard a lot recently is the challenge of selling a big piece of capital equipment and the long sales cycle to keep them incentive. But I assume part of the equation for your distributors is they're providing service too, right? So they're getting revenue streams that way as well as selling the equipment?
You bet.
Great.
When you sell a piece of medium to high pressure compressor equipment, it's not like you're selling a pin and you walk away from it.
Right.
It's where you're selling the pin, but oh, by the way, you've got a revenue stream on the back end to support it. Oil changes, filter changes. So you've got a huge revenue stream behind that. Yeah.
Do you have exclusive relationships with those distributors, or is it a mixed bag?
It's a mixed bag, depending upon the territory that you're in, and that doesn't matter whether it's domestic or foreign. When we're outside the United States, 9 chances out of 10, we don't have exclusive written agreements. It's more of a gentleman's handshake agreement.
Right.
And as long as you respect him and don't do anything silly, he'll respect the relationship. And it's worked for Jiminy Cricket since the mid-'70s.
Right.
Works well.
Interesting. I've talked to many companies who will say the same thing, that written exclusive agreements sort of tie one's hands a little bit too much. But if you do support each other and you have a good relationship, you know, an informal exclusivity, so to speak, works fairly well in many cases.
Very well.
Got it.
And it gets to the point where I keep harping on, you got to be in front of your customer. You got to be in front of your customer. Our salespeople here are so tuned in with their customers. It's not where you just know the customer, but you know the customer's family. You know, selling is personal relationships. It doesn't matter whether you're dealing with the end user customer or the distributor. You've got to make that connection.
How do you select which shows to invest in? How do you measure the ROI?
That's kind of a leading question. Usually when
they're all leading questions.
They're all leading questions. Usually when you're trying to get into a new area, we, Bauer, will ping on experts. State of Virginia, hey, what do you guys have here? What do you think is going on in that area in this particular market segment? Same thing with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. We will travel to the respective country. We will participate in trade shows. And when I say participate, I don't mean physically rent a booth. For probably a year or two, we walk the floor to get a sense of what kind of show this is. Is it a good fit for Bauer? Look at the competition, you know, look at potential distribution, and then we will take that information and make a value judgment on it. Sometimes it does good, sometimes it doesn't do good. Qualifying that even further, you may hear while at a trade show that you need to sign this particular distributor up, but you may find 6 months to a year down the road it doesn't fit, but you're still using that to find out about the market. I'm not sure if I'm explaining that properly.
It's sort of, there's an exploratory phase.
That's
if you
exactly
will.
right. We call it discovery. And that discovery may take 6 months, it may take a year, it may take 2 years. But at the end of the day, you hope that you align yourself with a partner that fits Bauer, has good credit, has highly focused salespeople, and then you're also using that to say, okay, I've spent X amount of thousands of dollars, what am I getting out of this? Meaning, if I haven't found the proper distributor and I'm not getting business, you're not seeing any ROI on that. You've got to find a partner that's going to get you that return on the investment.
So let me repeat this back to make sure I got it, because I think it's really interesting. So there's like a kind of discovery period, as you put it, where you might go to a show initially in a region, might find a new distributor, and you're kind of learning. The first time you go to the show, you may walk it and not exhibit. You may then later exhibit. You may test out a distributor, and that time you're both capturing new information on the market intelligence, seeing whether the distributor will play out, seeing whether the show plays out. By that time, now we're talking maybe 1, 2, or 3 years, and you should, at that point, see some sales. But there's a patience required here. In other words, you're not expecting to see sales necessarily in the first 3 months, so to speak. It's got to take some time to pan out.
That's correct. Every year, January timeframe, we establish objectives for our partners.
That's going to be my next question.
And that doesn't matter whether he's in Mexico or Michigan. Every partner knows what is expected of him for sales. Because if without those benchmarks, if you will, how do you know if the guy's succeeding or not? We use a software program here called Salesforce. That's not just here at Bauer, Norfolk, but that's Bauer worldwide. It is an absolutely fantastic media for tracking sales, sales leads, opportunities, the whole shebang.
Do you have kind of an annual or even more frequently sort of joint planning sessions with them to kind of figure out how you're going to attack that particular territory in various end markets? Or is it not that granular?
No, it's done every month.
Monthly, okay.
That report is pushed out to those partners every month. At the end of the month, Our sales team is talking with those distributor partners every single day.
Right.
You know, hey, how are you doing on this particular opportunity? What do we got to do here? That kind of thing.
And I assume you're not just looking at sales, but you're looking at activities, right?
Oh, you bet.
Are we getting appointments? Are we going to the right shows? Are we going to doing all the things that get you to a sale?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It's definitely a case where you have to be involved in it. It is a corporate commitment, because if the corporation is not committed to somebody spending a certain amount of time to do that, they need to back away from it. And it's not just time, it's money, but time is money.
Right. I mean, you've got to spend the time, set targets, work together on them, push the data out, et cetera.
That's exactly right.
Can you talk a little bit about how you adapt your marketing to different regions that could be within, the Western Hemisphere or different,
Here in this hemisphere, we have what I would call stock sales and marketing information. Obviously, that's going to be in English.
Right.
For our partners that are outside the United States, it may be a case where they need it in Portuguese. They may need it in Spanish, and that could be anything from a sales and marketing piece to the price sheet to the specifications. We're prepared to do that. Now, step offshore to, say, the Middle East. You've got a Bauer division there, whereas kind of the middleman, if you will.
Right.
We don't push out to their distributor, but we will create marketing pieces for them, price lists for them. If it has to be in a different language, so be it. They're the boss. We have a department that does that here at Bauer. So yeah, you're having to adapt your processes, procedures to that specific marketplace. What we do here in the United States, totally different than what's done in Mexico, totally different from Saudi Arabia, totally different from Singapore.
Do you do the translations and localization here, or
For this hemisphere, we'll handle it here.
Right. So Spanish and Portuguese and English here.
Done here, and that even down to the operator manuals. If we have to translate operation manuals for the equipment, we'll do that. If you jump off to, say, Singapore or the Middle East, they'll take care of that translation stuff. If they don't want to do it there, we can do it here for a fee. But again, it's a case where you have to adapt to what the customer's expectations are.
Do you use professional translators, or do you do it sort of like in-house speakers, or work with them?
No, we hire professionals, because a lot of the time these translations have to be certified. And a lot of these translations, when you're talking about technical manuals, it's got to be dead nuts.
Got it. And it sounds like you do both marketing materials, technical documentation, and website you have in Spanish.
Correct.
It sounds like.
Correct.
And then if another part of the world wants the website in a different language, that's kind of on them.
That's their responsibility. We'll be happy to work with them on what I would call screenshots. Hey, can you set this up for us? Be happy to do that, but just give us guidance on what you need.
So, and because of the technical nature of these things, you need to have these manuals and things like that, because they need it to operate, and there are safety issues here, and so because my original question was going to be, was it cost effective? But it's got to be. You have to do it because customers need it.
Exactly right.
Are there other ways you support them with, like, incentives, like co-op advertising or shared advertising or volume rebates or other types of things?
For this hemisphere, we typically don't get into co-op advertising, but that's specifically to this industry, meaning the high-pressure breathing air industry.
It's not the way it works.
Correct. Now, you get into some other markets, say outside the United States, it's very common for those other Bauer divisions to do co-op advertising. With that said, here in this hemisphere, let's say we're doing a publication for our distributor down in Chile. We'll give him the artwork. We'll prepare the artwork for him.
Right.
So yeah, it's not a co-op dollar.
But you're sharing costs.
That's exactly right. There's still value to that.
Got it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it's being shared. What other parting shots? I mean, we covered a number of topics, but if you're just thinking about, key lessons learned, if you were talking to the typical company in our Export Tech program that does them international, but they're not highly experienced yet, and they're growing. And I'm thinking, what are there other key lessons learned as they're thinking about their international marketing and business development? Are there other key things about what's effective or lessons learned?
You bet. And it's not just on the sales and marketing side.
Okay.
Patience is one. The way we go about business here in the United States is not necessarily the way you'd go about business outside the United States.
Right.
So your expectations, you need to be patient, number one. Number two, the company has to be committed to the process, committed.
Right.
And that's not just on the manpower, but that's also on the financial side. I indicated initially that I'm out of here better than 50% of the time. That is a huge investment in my time and resources. The company has to be committed to that.
Well, Bill, thank you so much for spending some time with us. I think it's going to be hugely valuable for our companies, and I wish you continued success and continued growth and success in your Norfolk operations specifically. So
Thanks.
Thanks
for coming.
Thank you again.
You bet.